My villa is theirs now. You are not allowed to come." That was the sentence that shattered something inside me. It came from the lips of my daughter, Elaine, on an ordinary Tuesday morning. I was out on the veranda, watering the rose bushes that my late wife, Margaret, had planted 25 years ago. The roses were always her pride, the soft coral petals catching the sun just right, glowing like embers against the stone wall. I had tended them every spring since her passing, more out of devotion than habit. To me, keeping them alive was keeping a piece of her alive. The phone rang, and I answered without hesitation, smiling when I saw Elaine's name on the screen. But her voice wasn't the warm, hurried tone of a daughter checking in on her father. It was clipped, decisive, like she was reading from a script. "Dad, I just wanted to let you know, William's family is moving into the villa this weekend. It's theirs now. You are not allowed to come." For a moment, I didn't understand. The words seemed to hang in the air, tangled and weightless. My grip on the watering can tightened, the rusted handle biting into my palm, water dribbling onto my shoe. I wanted to believe I'd misheard her. "My villa?" I whispered, as if by repeating it, I could anchor myself to reality. "Elaine, what are you saying?" "You don't need it anymore, Dad. You live alone. It's too much space. William's parents will take good care of it. It's the right thing to do." Her tone was cold, stripped of affection, not even a pause to ask how I felt about it. I swallowed hard, my throat dry as desert wind. "Elaine, that house isn't just walls and wood. It's where you took your first steps, where we celebrated Christmas with your mother. Remember? The villa carries her memory, our memory." "Dad," she cut me off, her voice sharp, almost irritated. "You'll be fine. Please don't make this harder. It's done." And with that, the line went dead. I stood there, frozen, listening to the echo of silence. The gulls wheeled over the sea, their cries shrill and distant, as if mocking me. My chest burned with betrayal, not from strangers, but from my own daughter. Blood of my blood. I lowered the watering can, setting it carefully on the veranda railing, as though it was something fragile. My reflection in the glass door caught my eye. An old man with silver hair, lines carved deep into his face, eyes wet with something he refused to call tears. For a brief, agonizing moment, I felt powerless, like the years of sacrifice, the nights I worked double shifts to provide, the memories shared under that roof. All of it had been erased with a single phone call. But then a different feeling crept in. Not despair, not grief, something sharper. I straightened my back, exhaled slowly, and allowed a small, knowing smile to curve my lips. "Very well, Elaine," I whispered, my voice steady now. "If they want my home, let them come." I turned back toward the villa, its white shutters gleaming in the morning light, its stone walls weathered but strong. My home. Mine. Theirs only if I allowed it. And as I gazed at the roses swaying in the breeze, I felt something stir inside me. Resolve. A plan was already forming. But that night, as I walked through the villa one last time, I found something hidden inside that twisted the knife of betrayal even deeper. That night, the villa felt different. The same stone floors that once echoed with laughter now carried only the sound of my steps, slow, deliberate, almost reverent. I hadn't turned on many lights, only the sconces in the hallway. Their faint glow stretched across the walls, making the house look older, lonelier. Dust hung in the air like a veil, stirred by my movements. I touched the mahogany banister as I climbed the staircase, the wood polished smooth from decades of use. My hand trembled, not from age, but from the weight of memory. Each step pulled me deeper into the past. The villa wasn't just a house, it was a gallery of my life. Margaret's laughter in the kitchen, Elaine's childhood drawings still tucked into the corners of bookshelves, the faint scent of lavender in the guest room where she used to sleep as a girl. But tonight, the house carried no warmth. It felt like a stranger wearing a familiar face. I pushed open the door to Elaine's old bedroom. The moonlight spilled through the window, illuminating the faded wallpaper with its tiny painted stars. For a moment, I remembered her as a child, running in with tangled hair, holding a seashell to her ear, convinced she could hear the ocean. My chest ached with the sweetness of it, but the ache turned bitter quickly. That little girl was gone. In her place stood a woman who had declared me unwelcome in my own home. I sat on the edge of the bed, the springs groaning under my weight. My hand brushed against the nightstand, where a thin layer of dust had gathered. That was when I noticed something. A small stack of envelopes tucked beneath an old lamp. Curiosity pried my fingers to move. I pulled them out, squinting in the dim light. Letters. Recent ones. Addressed not to me, but to Elaine. The handwriting wasn't mine, nor her late mother's. It was William's. My jaw tightened as I opened the first. Elaine, I know your father will resist, but stay firm. He's too sentimental, too old-fashioned. Once the villa is in our hands, we'll finally have something to show my parents. Don't let him guilt you into backing down. This is our chance to prove ourselves. My chest went cold. Another letter. Remember, he's alone now. He has no fight left in him. Don't listen to his stories about the past. Just remind him he doesn't belong in that house anymore. My parents will love you even more for this. The blood drained from my face. It wasn't just Elaine's choice. It was orchestrated, manipulated. They weren't just taking a house, they were taking my legacy, built with my sweat, my sacrifice, and my wife's love. I placed the letters back carefully, my hands steady, though my heart thundered in my chest. A storm raged inside me, not just grief anymore, but a fire that refused to be smothered. I whispered into the empty room, my voice breaking the silence like a vow. They think I am powerless. They think I have no fight left. They are wrong. I rose from the bed, my spine straight as steel, and walked down the corridor, flicking off each light as I went. The villa sank into darkness behind me, but within that darkness, something new was born. Resolve sharpened into something far more dangerous. The house wasn't theirs yet, and if they wanted to move in, they would find more than they bargained for. I thought my plan would be simple, but fate handed me a weapon I never expected. The very past they tried to erase. The following morning, I woke before dawn. Sleep had abandoned me long ago. I sat at the old oak desk in the study, the one where I used to help Elaine with her homework while Margaret brought us cocoa. The desk was scarred with ink stains and knife scratches, but it had outlasted everyone. Margaret, my brothers, even my own patience. The sea breeze crept through the shutters, carrying with it the scent of salt and pine. I leaned back in the leather chair, staring at the faint outline of the villa in the mirror across the room. My villa. And now they intended to rip it from me. On the desk lay the letters I'd taken from Elaine's old room. I had read them through the night, each word cutting deeper than the last. Yet somewhere in the midst of my anger, I realized something. William had miscalculated. He thought age meant weakness, but what he didn't know was that this villa carried more than walls. It carried records, history, papers that could shift the ground under his family's feet. I opened the bottom drawer, the one I hadn't touched in years. Inside, wrapped in a faded cloth, were folders tied with twine. I had kept them not out of paranoia, but duty. The original deeds to the property, Margaret's handwritten letters about the renovations we'd done together, tax receipts, photographs of every stage of our lives within those walls. Proof that this villa wasn't just an inheritance, it was the spine of my life's story. And tucked among them was something even more potent, a legal clause Margaret had insisted on years ago. She had been sharp, foresighted in ways I never fully appreciated until now. The villa could not be transferred, sold, or gifted without my written consent, my signature, and mine alone. I sat back, the weight of realization pressing against me. They had no idea. Elaine, blinded by William's promises, had handed them smoke, not fire. But there was more. I found myself rifling through Margaret's letters, her voice coming alive in the ink. This home is more than stone, Richard. It's where love is built, not just where it sleeps. If one day you are left to defend it alone, remember, it was never just yours. It was ours. I closed my eyes, pressing the letter to my lips. For the first time since Elaine's call, I felt Margaret beside me, not as a memory, but as strength. I wasn't just going to defend the villa, I was going to make them regret ever thinking they could take it. The plan sharpened in my mind. Not a violent gesture, not a loud confrontation. No, something quieter, sharper, unforgettable. When William's family arrived to claim what was theirs, they would step into a home that bore no welcome, only truth. I rose from the desk, clutching Margaret's letter in one hand and the deeds in the other. The house creaked around me as the first light of dawn spilled through the shutters. It no longer felt like a tomb of memories. It felt like an ally. They thought they had cornered me. They had no idea the battle had just begun. What they didn't know was that my villa held secrets, secrets I had guarded for decades, waiting for the right moment to use them. I spent the next days in silence, as if speaking aloud might shatter the fragile web of thoughts forming in my mind. The villa, my oldest companion, seemed to sense the shift in me. Every creak of the wooden beams, every sigh of the shutters in the wind, every flicker of light on the stone floors felt like a conversation between us. I began my work at dawn, not with tools of war, but with tools of memory. In the living room, I pulled open the heavy oak cabinet where Margaret had stored our family albums. Dust motes danced as I opened it, filling the air with the faint scent of cedar and age. One by one, I laid the albums on the coffee table, photographs of birthdays, first days of school, Margaret in her summer dresses, Elaine with scraped knees, grinning proudly at her little victories. Each page was a reminder that this villa had been built brick by brick, not just with money, but with a lifetime of love and sacrifice. Then carefully, I placed them in plain sight, right where William's family would walk in. Let them see what they were trying to erase. In the dining hall, I polished the long walnut table until it gleamed. The same table where Margaret once lit candles for Thanksgiving, where we argued over college choices, where laughter and tears mingled with the aroma of roasted turkey and wine. I set out the old porcelain plates, slightly chipped but precious. Each one bore a memory. I wanted the house itself to speak when they arrived, to remind them, even if they pretended not to hear, that they were intruding on a story not theirs to claim. But memories alone were not enough. I needed something sharper, something undeniable. I walked into the study, opened the drawer, and pulled out the legal deeds. The paper was brittle, edges frayed, but the ink was as strong as the day it was written. Margaret's foresight had sealed my weapon. Without my consent, nothing they claimed was real. Still, I knew people like William's family. They didn't deal in truth. They dealt in appearances. They would strut in, full of entitlement, assuming my silence meant surrender. I had no intention of raising my voice or begging them. No, I would let the villa itself, armed with truth, shame them. That evening I wandered through the empty rooms with a lantern, listening to the echoes of my footsteps. The light spilled across the walls, brushing against every corner where Margaret's touch still lingered. In the master bedroom, her vanity remained untouched, her perfume bottles still lined neatly, though the scent had long since faded. I let my fingers trace the cool glass, and a thought struck me like lightning. This wasn't just about defending a home, it was about defending her memory. I whispered to the silence, "You're still here, Margaret, and together we'll show them." I began moving things, not randomly, but with intent. Placing her framed photograph on the mantel, arranging her favorite quilt across the sofa, positioning my tools and documents in plain view, not hidden like secrets, but displayed like evidence. Every room was being set, not as a house ready for guests, but as a theater waiting for its audience. And I was both stagehand and actor, preparing for the moment the curtain would rise. By the time I finished, the night had deepened. The sea murmured in the distance, the waves brushing the shore, with a rhythm older than any of us. I stood at the veranda, lantern in hand, and watched the villa glow behind me in the darkness, alive with something fierce. They thought they were walking into a prize. What they didn't know was that they were walking into a reckoning. But fate had a cruel way of testing me. Before William's family even set foot in the villa, Elaine returned alone, and what she confessed shook me to my core. I didn't expect to hear the crunch of tires on the gravel so soon. The weekend was still days away. William's family wasn't due yet, but when I opened the front door, lantern light spilling onto the driveway, it wasn't a caravan of moving trucks. It was just one car, a small silver sedan. And out of it stepped Elaine. For a moment, the years fell away. I didn't see the cold woman from the phone call. I saw the child who used to clutch my hand so tightly at county fairs, afraid of getting lost in the crowd. Her figure was fragile in the moonlight. Her hair pulled back hastily, her eyes restless. She didn't come with triumph. She came with something else, shame, perhaps, or fear. "Dad," she said quietly, her voice hoarse. I stepped aside. "Come in." She hesitated at the threshold. That hesitation was telling. She was afraid of the house, or of me, or perhaps of what the walls might whisper back to her. Still, she entered, her heels clicking nervously against the stone floor. The silence between us was thick. I let it sit. I had no intention of filling it for her. Finally, she spoke, almost in a rush. I didn't think he would push me this far. My chest tightened, but I kept my face calm. "William?" She nodded. Her eyes flickered to the photographs I had laid out on the coffee table, then quickly away. "He said if I wanted a future with him, if I wanted his family's respect, I had to do this. Take the villa. Prove to them that I wasn't just marrying into their name empty-handed. He said," her voice broke for a moment, "he said you were old, that you didn't need this place anymore, that you'd fade away soon." Her words struck like knives. Not because of William. I already knew his venom, but because she had repeated them, lived them, until tonight. I clenched my hands behind my back to keep from trembling. And you believed him? Her lips quivered. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she sat at the dining table, where the porcelain plates gleamed faintly under the light. She stared at them as though they were ghosts. I wanted to believe him, she admitted finally. I thought if I gave him what he wanted, he'd see me as strong, independent, worthy of his family. But when I told you, when I heard myself say those words to you, it felt like something inside me cracked. For the first time in years, I saw tears in her eyes. Not crocodile tears, but the trembling, silent kind. I lowered myself into the chair opposite her. My voice was steady, but inside me, storms collided. Elaine, strength isn't measured by what you take from others, especially not from the people who built you, who carried you when you had nothing. Strength is protecting what matters, and you forgot that. She pressed her palms to her face, muffling her sobs. I don't know how to fix it, Dad. William, he won't back down. His family won't back down. They'll be here in 2 days, and if I go against them now— She looked up, fear in her eyes. They'll destroy me. Her words echoed in the silence. Destroy her. The irony tasted bitter. I had spent my life shielding her from pain, and now, by her own choices, she had walked willingly into its jaws. I stood, pacing the room. The fire in my chest no longer just anger. It was resolve hardened into iron. Elaine, I said at last, you chose your side when you betrayed me. But if you're here asking for my help, know this: I will not protect your mistakes. I will only protect this house and the memory of your mother. If you wish to stand with me, you must stand against him. She lowered her gaze, her tears dripping onto the porcelain plate beneath her fingers. She whispered, so faint I almost didn't hear it. I don't know if I'm strong enough. I leaned close, my voice quiet but firm. Then learn, child, because when they come, there will be no middle ground. You will either stand as my daughter or as their accomplice. The weight of my words filled the room like smoke. She didn't answer, but I saw the battle raging in her eyes. And in that moment, I realized this wasn't just about the villa anymore. It was about who she would become when the reckoning came. I thought her tears were the turning point, but the storm that followed the next morning proved how wrong I was. At dawn, I awoke to a sound I hadn't heard in years: car doors slamming outside the gates. Not the careful tread of Elaine's sedan, but heavier steps, brash and careless, as though the ground itself belonged to them. I rose from my chair in the study, where I had fallen asleep, with Margaret's letter still in my hand, and moved to the window. 3 men stood at the gate, strangers yet familiar in the way they carried themselves. William's brothers, their broad shoulders and smug posture were enough to tell me everything. They were inspecting the villa from a distance, pointing, laughing, gesturing with the arrogance of men already certain of victory. One of them rattled the iron gate, shouting up toward the house. We'll be here Saturday, old man. Make sure the place is ready. Their voices carried, sharp and crude, against the morning air. Elaine appeared behind me, pale as parchment. She clutched the railing of the staircase, her knuckles white. He sent them early, she whispered, more to herself than to me. I didn't move. I let them rattle the gate, let them spit their arrogance into the air. The villa stood silent in reply, as it always had. Its strength was not in noise, but in endurance. Finally, after a few more jeers, the men got back into their truck and drove off, the gravel spitting under their tires. Elaine sank into a chair, burying her face in her hands. "You don't know them, Dad. They'll humiliate you. They'll bring everyone. His parents, his cousins. They'll turn this into a spectacle." I turned to her, calm as still water. "Then let them come. A spectacle requires an audience. And I'll make sure the villa shows them more than they expect." But even as I spoke, something shifted inside me. I realized this wasn't just about documents or photographs. These people weren't coming for a home. They were coming for dominance, to erase me, to make my daughter kneel to their family's name. I could not allow that. So I began to prepare, not with anger, but with precision. I returned to the study, spreading the deeds across the desk. I reread every clause, every condition, memorizing the lines Margaret had fought to include. The paper was not just ink and parchment. It was a shield, forged long ago, waiting for this battle. Yet my weapon would not be law alone. No. Law was silent, invisible. I needed something that spoke louder than their arrogance, something that could cut through their pride like glass through flesh. That evening, I walked the villa again. I touched the cool stone of the walls, the frames of the windows, the doors that had swung open to friends, never enemies. I felt the house breathing with me, as though it too was preparing. The storm outside was not just theirs, it was mine as well. Elaine lingered in the hall, watching me. There was fear in her, yes, but something else flickered there too. Shame, maybe even awakening. For the first time, she didn't argue. She followed me room to room, silent, as though trying to relearn what this house truly was. At one point, she whispered, "Do you really think you can stop them?" I looked at her, my voice firm as stone. "Elaine, this villa has withstood tempests greater than William's family, and so have I." Her eyes brimmed with something unspoken, but she said no more. That night, as the waves crashed harder against the shore and the shutters groaned under the wind, I knew the battle had already begun, not with fists or papers, but with the quiet defiance of a man who refused to be erased. But on the eve of their arrival, I uncovered something hidden in the villa, something Margaret had left behind, that turned my plan from defense into revelation. The night before their arrival, I couldn't sleep. The villa was too alive, its silence too heavy. I lit a single candle and wandered through the rooms again, my hand brushing the walls, as though Margaret's spirit might press back through the stone. Something tugged at me, an old instinct, the kind that has no logic but demands to be followed. I found myself in the attic, a place I had avoided since her death. Dust thickened the air, catching in my throat as I pushed open the creaking door. The beam of my lantern cut across boxes, stacked like forgotten sentinels. I knelt before one of them, her handwriting scrawled across the side in faded ink. For Richard, for later. My breath caught. I hadn't seen it in years. Perhaps I had avoided it, fearing what later might mean. But now, with William's family breathing down our gates, later had arrived. I untied the twine with trembling fingers and opened the box. Inside were small relics of a life. Margaret's shawl, still faintly carrying her lavender scent. Notebooks filled with her tidy script. A music box we'd bought on our honeymoon, its tune fragile but unbroken when I wound it. And beneath these, wrapped in parchment, was a letter. My name on the envelope, her handwriting steady, certain. I sat on the floor, candle flickering, and unfolded it. "Richard, if you are reading this, it means the weight of this house has fallen upon you alone. I know your heart. You will try to carry it all in silence, but don't. Remember, this villa is not just walls. It is a truth, a testimony of who we were. If someone comes to take it, show them not anger, but light. Show them what this home holds. They can steal bricks, but they cannot steal a legacy written in love. Let them choke on that truth. My hands shook, but not with grief, with power. She had left me the answer. Not confrontation, not bitterness, revelation. I closed the letter, clutching it to my chest. For the first time in weeks, I felt her not as a memory, but as a force at my back. I wasn't alone. When I descended from the attic, Elaine was waiting in the hallway, bleary-eyed from sleeplessness. She looked at me, at the dust on my hands, the candle still glowing. "Where were you?" I placed the letter gently in her palm. "With your mother." She opened it, and as her eyes scanned the words, her shoulders began to shake. Not from fear this time, but from something breaking open inside her. "I forgot," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I forgot what this house really meant." I placed my hand on hers, steady. "Then, remember now, tomorrow, when they come, this house will not need to shout. It will simply be, and that will be enough to undo them." She nodded, tears streaking her face, and for the first time since this nightmare began, I saw my daughter, the girl who had once run barefoot through these halls, return to me. That night, as the storm outside finally calmed and the sea softened to a lull, the villa seemed to breathe easier. Margaret had spoken. The stage was set. And so, when William's family arrived at dawn, with their smug grins and their empty hands, they found not an old man defeated, but a legacy waiting to strike back. They came at dawn. Engines growled up the driveway, headlights cutting through the morning mist. I stood at the veranda, hands resting calmly on the wooden rail, as the caravan of cars rolled in. William stepped out first, his chest puffed, his smug smile radiating victory. Behind him came his parents, faces tight with pride, and then his brothers, laughing as if the villa were already theirs. Elaine stood just inside the doorway, pale but upright, Margaret's letter clutched in her hand. William spread his arms wide when he saw me. "Richard," he said, voice loud, performative, "I hope you've packed up your things. We're ready to make this place a real home now." His parents chuckled, stepping past me without a glance, already peering at the windows, the stonework, the garden roses. One of his brothers slapped the gate, as if testing its strength, muttering, "Solid, we'll fix it up." I didn't move, I didn't shout, I didn't beg. Instead, I opened the door wide. "Come in," I said evenly. "See what you're taking." They filed in, their laughter echoing against the stone walls, but laughter fades quickly in the presence of truth. The living room greeted them not with emptiness, but with photographs spread across the table. Margaret, holding Elaine as a newborn, family gathered at Christmas. Me and my wife, kneeling in the garden we planted together. The air shifted. Their smugness faltered for the briefest moment, as if the house itself had spoken. William snorted, forcing a laugh. "Nice decorations, but they don't change anything." I led them into the dining hall. The walnut table gleamed, porcelain plates set as though awaiting a family dinner. Margaret's quilt rested across the sofa, her framed photograph above the mantel. My every preparation stood not as ornament, but as accusation. William's mother muttered something under her breath, her eyes flicking to Elaine. I caught the discomfort there. And then When silence hung thick enough to choke, I walked to the study. Slowly, deliberately, I laid the deeds on the desk. The parchment looked fragile, but the ink was iron. "You see," I said, my voice calm, "this villa cannot be transferred, sold, or gifted without my written consent. Margaret made sure of that, and my consent will never come." William's face darkened, his smug smile collapsing. "You're bluffing." I slid the papers across the desk toward him. "Read." He grabbed them, scanning quickly, his eyes narrowing as the truth carved into him. His father leaned over his shoulder, muttering curses. His brothers grew restless, shifting uncomfortably. Elaine stepped forward then, her voice trembling but clear. "He's not bluffing, William. And neither am I. This house isn't yours. It never will be." The room stilled. William's head snapped toward her, rage in his eyes. "You—" But she cut him off, louder now, firmer than I had ever heard her. "I betrayed my father once. I will not do it again. You wanted me to choose between your family's greed and my own blood. I choose him. I choose my mother's memory." Her words cracked through the air like thunder. William's parents blustered, his brothers swore, but the villa's walls held steady. The house, alive with every memory, seemed to push back against them, suffocating their arrogance. I stepped closer, my voice low but sharp. "You thought I was too old to fight. You mistook silence for weakness. But this villa has stood longer than your pride, and it will stand long after it. Leave." William slammed the papers down, his face red with humiliation. He turned on his heel, barking at his family to go. One by one, they filed out, their arrogance crumbling into mutters and clenched jaws. The engines roared to life again, and just as quickly as they had come, they were gone, swallowed by the road and the sea mist. The silence that followed was unlike any silence before. It was not heavy, it was free. Elaine collapsed into a chair, tears streaming, not of shame this time, but of release. She clutched Margaret's letter against her chest. "Dad, I don't deserve your forgiveness." I placed a hand on her shoulder. "Forgiveness is not a gift you earn, child. It's a choice. And today, you chose to return. That is enough." We sat together in the villa, the morning sun spilling golden light across the stone floor. For the first time in years, the house felt alive again. Not haunted by what I had lost, but glowing with what I had defended. Margaret's roses swayed in the breeze outside, their petals catching the light. I breathed in, deeply, feeling her presence in the air. She had been right. They could try to steal bricks, but they could never steal a legacy built in love. And in that moment, I knew. I had not just won back my home. I had won back my daughter. They came at dawn. Engines growled up the driveway, headlights cutting through the morning mist. I stood at the veranda, hands resting calmly on the wooden rail, as the caravan of cars rolled in. William stepped out first, his chest puffed, his smug smile radiating victory. Behind him came his parents, faces tight with pride, and then his brothers, laughing as if the villa were already theirs. Elaine stood just inside the doorway, pale but upright, Margaret's letter clutched in her hand. William spread his arms wide when he saw me. "Richard," he said, voice loud, performative, "I hope you've packed up your things. We're ready to make this place a real home now." His parents chuckled, stepping past me without a glance, already peering at the windows, the stonework, the garden roses. One of his brothers slapped the gate, as if testing its strength, muttering, "Solid, we'll fix it up." I didn't move, I didn't shout, I didn't beg. Instead, I opened the door wide. "Come in," I said evenly. "See what you're taking." They filed in, their laughter echoing against the stone walls. But laughter fades quickly in the presence of truth. The living room greeted them not with emptiness, but with photographs spread across the table. Margaret holding Elaine as a newborn, family gathered at Christmas, me and my wife kneeling in the garden we planted together. The air shifted, their smugness faltered for the briefest moment, as if the house itself had spoken. William snorted, forcing a laugh. "Nice decorations, but they don't change anything." I led them into the dining hall. The walnut table gleamed, porcelain plates set as though awaiting a family dinner. Margaret's quilt rested across the sofa, her framed photograph above the mantel. My every preparation stood not as ornament, but as accusation. William's mother muttered something under her breath, her eyes flicking to Elaine. I caught the discomfort there, and then, when silence hung thick enough to choke, I walked to the study. Slowly, deliberately, I laid the deeds on the desk. The parchment looked fragile, but the ink was iron. "You see," I said, my voice calm, "this villa cannot be transferred, sold, or gifted without my written consent. Margaret made sure of that, and my consent will never come." William's face darkened, his smug smile collapsing. "You're bluffing." I slid the papers across the desk toward him. "Read." He grabbed them, scanning quickly, his eyes narrowing as the truth carved into him. His father leaned over his shoulder, muttering curses. His brothers grew restless, shifting uncomfortably. Elaine stepped forward then, her voice trembling but clear. "He's not bluffing, William, and neither am I. This house isn't yours. It never will be." The room stilled. William's head snapped toward her, rage in his eyes. "You—" But she cut him off, louder now, firmer than I had ever heard her. "I betrayed my father once. I will not do it again. You wanted me to choose between your family's greed and my own blood. I choose him. I choose my mother's memory." Her words cracked through the air like thunder. William's parents blustered, his brothers swore, but the villa's walls held steady. The house, alive with every memory, seemed to push back against them, suffocating their arrogance. I stepped closer, my voice low but sharp. "You thought I was too old to fight. You mistook silence for weakness. But this villa has stood longer than your pride, and it will stand long after it. Leave." William slammed the papers down, his face red with humiliation. He turned on his heel, barking at his family to go. One by one, they filed out, their arrogance crumbling into mutters and clenched jaws. The engines roared to life again, and just as quickly as they had come, they were gone, swallowed by the road and the sea mist. The silence that followed was unlike any silence before. It was not heavy, it was free. Elaine collapsed into a chair, tears streaming, not of shame this time, but of release. She clutched Margaret's letter against her chest. "Dad, I don't deserve your forgiveness." I placed a hand on her shoulder. "Forgiveness is not a gift you earn, child. It's a choice, and today you chose to return. That is enough." We sat together in the villa, the morning sun spilling golden light across the stone floor. For the first time in years, the house felt alive again, not haunted by what I had lost, but glowing with what I had defended. Margaret's roses swayed in the breeze outside, their petals catching the light. I breathed in, deeply, feeling her presence in the air. She had been right. They could try to steal bricks, but they could never steal a legacy built in love. And in that moment, I knew I had not just won back my home. I had won back my daughter,